Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Albert Ramirez versus Jerome Pampellone fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video. And this is a Patreon requested video, so on a weekend that particularly isn't that stacked, there is, still this good fight, which I was tempted to do a video for in itself, but, one of the Patreon members asked for it, and it has encouraged me to come and do it now, of course. And you can request your own kind of combat sporting related video if you feel like I'm missing a video and you would like to recommend one. You can, like I say, join the Patreon. The link will be in the description. And again, it does really support the channel, so thank you very much. But yeah, let's get straight into this one. So this is a WBA World Title Eliminator for the light heavyweight division, and it would make the winner technically mandatory for Dmitry Bivol, who of course is the world champion. And we have just recently seen that Beterbiev will be on the November card, in which is the big November card against Dion Nicholson, who is, a hard-hitting puncher who's a top contender, but, will be an interesting test, but isn't, of course, a Bivol third fight, which seemingly a lot of people were kind of expecting to be made instead, because, of course, Bivol versus Benavidez hasn't happened, and instead Benavidez is going off and doing his own thing and fighting Callum Smith, I believe, instead. And so, like I say, that kind of means that for Bivol there is an opportunity for, like I say, the winner of this fight to maybe put themselves in a position to then get a world title shot. If you look at the other possibilities of opponents, there isn't a tremendous amount of options for somebody like a Dmitry Bivol if he isn't going to fight a Benavidez and if he isn't going to fight Beterbiev next. So perhaps the winner of this might have to have a bit of a quick turnaround if they're wanting to straight away use their mandatory position and get in for that WBA world title, plus, the other ones in which Bivol holds. But there's definitely an opportunity, and there's a chance there that the winner of this, like I say, could go on to fight for a world title next. They might not. I mean, Jerome Pampellone fought Conor Wallace, and that was, I believe, an IBF world title eliminator in itself. And again, of course, Conor Wallace hasn't had the opportunity to go on to fight for a world title just yet. So, again, it's not guaranteed, but it seems likely, like I say, putting himself in the right position. This card, like I say, it stands out this weekend due to there not really being many shows on, like I touched upon, and, it's kind of got all the eyes on it as a show. And in Libya, it's a mutual ground for pretty much every fighter that's on it. Nobody's really fighting from there. So again, there's a couple good fights in it. I've already done one video for the Mirko Coelho Sergio Rios fight, which I think is an interesting contest, but maybe not going to be the most contested in my opinion. But I think this fight definitely has the makings to be a good, very solid fight, which could definitely have two styles that maybe match out well, and could, like I say, go on to a bit of a firefight. For Albert Ramirez, he's kind of managed to get himself in a highly ranked position due to taking fights all over the place, and perhaps not always on the biggest shows, so he's been going relatively unnoticed, but he's still been beating other kind of high level guys. There's a few undefeated fighters and a few other possible contenders, and just to list a few, and you might be able to see a possible little trend in which you can kind of gather from the opponents in which Ramirez has faced. We'll start off with Marco Silic, who of course fought Boazzi in 2020. Ramirez fought him and knocked him out sooner than that of what Boazzi did. Moving on to Adam Deans, he fought Beterbiev in 2021, Deans, and got knocked out, but Ramirez stopped him sooner. And then also as a final, little kind of opponent there, Brian Suarez fought Lyndon Arthur in 2023, which, yes, isn't a tremendously big name, but, he got KO'd by Lyndon Arthur, but Ramirez KO'd him in the first round. And, that was when also Suarez was an undefeated fighter as well. So that's a bit of a trend there, like I said, and it's something in which, like I say, is going a bit unnoticed. Yes, the level of opposition isn't tremendously high, but it's a good solid level, and you can see that these other fellow big name fighters have been going through them kind of levels before they get to a world title shot. And so, I'm quite happy to see that he's in a relatively good world rank position because, like I say, he's not fought any top contenders realistically just yet, but he has kind of gone down a route which does make sense to at least for him to be world title ranked compared to certain fighters in certain divisions, which I'm not going to go into. He also seemingly competed back in the amateurs for Venezuela in the Olympics in 2016. I'm quite surprised nobody has been keen to sign him. I mean, a power puncher who, maybe it's because he's from Venezuela and he's not getting a tremendous amount of attention, but he's willing to travel, willing to fight all over. Like I say, has been knocking out quite a few guys and doing it better than the biggest names. Again, like I say, I'm just surprised to see that nobody is trying to cash in on him just whilst he's in that world title position. But again, with this event being on the zone and being the biggest arguably of the weekend for boxing, maybe there is going to be eyes on him and he could maybe snap up a contract if he does well in this test. And this is, of course, his toughest test of his career, I do believe. But for Pampellone, I would say, Ramirez has to prove that he is the toughest test for Pampellone because Pampellone has had two relatively close fights. The decisions look close. The split decision versus Conor Wallace was, maybe a little bit controversial. I had, Conor Wallace winning quite convincingly, and then, relatively similar with Malik Zinad. But against, both of these guys, he still put up a valiant effort and still, gave a tough test and a good account of himself. And he was just a bit unfortunate because he's not been, he's been thrown in as the away fighter, but he's just never been given that opportunity to then be given the lucrative deal in which, I'm sure he thinks he deserves. And I mean, by saying that, I mean, of course, Malik Zinad came in on short notice for a big payday against Dmitry Bivol, which of course he lost badly, but that would have been a good money fight. And I think His Excellency, even after the fight, that said that he's still willing to work with Malik Zinad, and we haven't seen that just yet, but it probably will happen at some point. So again, that's even more money there. And Conor Wallace went on to win, and that basically helped lead him onto a matchroom contract, which would have gotten him some good money there as well. So it seems like Pampellone has had to work hard for the big fights and the big money and things like that. And I mean, again, I can't guarantee he's going to be getting a tremendous amount for this fight, but you never know. We'll have to wait and see. He's, got himself back in the winning column, at least out in Thailand, after beating a journeyman via TKO in round one. So, this could be a possibility for a final big opportunity. If he loses three in a row of the big opportunity fights, then that's definitely not going to bode well in his career. But again, he definitely has a chance in this fight for sure. To speak about both fighters a bit more individually, Ramirez as a fighter, he does have that one punch power knockout ability. And I think he's showcased that on quite a few occasions where he's just been able to basically just flatten quite a few opponents. He's definitely got a big imposing frame. I think Pampellone has got a big strong frame, whereas Ramirez has got a big strong imposing type frame where it is a bit bigger, it is, seemingly taking up a bit more space, but Pampellone is bullish a bit more so than that of Ramirez, I believe. Ramirez has a good strong jab, and I believe all his punches are thrown with intent, again, similarly to that of Pampellone. A few similar type characteristics here, which could definitely, again, like I say, gel to make a good fight. He punches through the guard, and he is, I think, typically at his best a mid-range type of fighter. I mean, Pampellone is definitely an in-close type of fighter, but I think Ramirez, he can fight in close and doesn't look bad whilst doing it, but again, probably would say his best work comes at a mid-range. He's got power in every punch, and he moves you around with every punch as well, which is definitely something which is hard for fighters to be able to deal with, and that's why he has got such a good knockout resume as well. He's got a good, strong, straight 1-2, which has seemingly caused a lot of problems, and he likes to rely on that quite a lot. He's got solid timing with his right hook. If he catches you coming in on the back foot, he's been able to flatten a couple of opponents doing that, and he might be able to have success with that against Pampellone. He's able to typically control the tempo quite well, and when he finishes down to the body after his straight 1-2, that's when, that's nice. That's when you can see a nice bit of damage then being inflicted and trying to change the level. If he did it a little bit more, then perhaps he would be able to have a bit more success down to the body. Negatives about him, I think the technique in which he throws his punches is interesting. I think it could definitely cause a little bit of tension on the wrist, which is a bit unnecessary. And, he's not really twisting his left when he throws it. And, maybe that can guarantee a bit more power. Again, that's something that only realistically he knows and what he feels comfortable throwing. But it's just, like I say, a technical thing which maybe looks a little bit worse on the eye in my opinion. His hands are quite low and he is quite open when he's throwing as well. I mean, I would say very open when he's throwing. He's got tense movements. Again, it's not that fluid, it's not that agile. He's quite flat-footed and he's got quite a minimal defense. There's sometimes a little bit of footwork, but quite minimal. His feet can cross over or be brought a bit too close together, especially when he comes in close. That's kind of the main reason as to why I say I think his better work is at a mid-range. He forces the fight a bit at times when he gets you hurt. If he can't get you out of there again, and that's when he can be made to miss quite wildly or can throw combinations which are a bit, non-coordinated. In my opinion, that's when, he'll throw an uppercut and he'll miss quite wildly and it'll just look quite poor. He will always find his way fight his way out of bad spots, which, not necessarily is a bad thing, but it means that he's not circling off the ring. He'd rather, use that energy and try and force his way off. And if Pampellone is perhaps smothering his work and, making it difficult on the inside for, giving Ramirez any space, then he could, have a few frustrations, Ramirez. And typically, especially later on, he does like to get drawn into a war. Pampellone as a fighter, again, touched upon it, big strong frame, aims to be bullish, wants to get you onto the ropes, and is pretty good for the most part at doing it. Maybe, later on he struggles a bit more, but when he does get you on the ropes, again, he is going to be landing his best work. He's got clubbing hooks, and again, he puts all into his shots, like I mentioned. He's got an explosive kind of style to an extent, which he tries to lead off his left hook well, and he's got a good left hook that he throws and is always looking for the big overhands, and that's predominantly his whole game plan. He's an in-close type fighter who is hard to be pushed off, and I do believe will be something in which Ramirez probably hasn't faced before. But at the same time, his defensive movement when he wants to use it, which again isn't a tremendous amount of time, isn't bad. He can circle off well when needed, and he's not got bad feints, which is how he was able to kind of bait out Conor Wallace a little bit at times. And again, tried to get in range doing that because he had to get past the longer shots of Conor Wallace, which did seem a difficult task for Pampellone to do throughout their fight. Negatives about him, I think fighting at a mid-range and, typically, yes, finding his way in. If he isn't feinting enough, if he's not really using enough head movement, then it can be difficult for him to find his way in. He's got quite a wide stance and himself does square up. He doesn't really make his jab have much of an effect when it's throwing. He'll try and throw it to the body, but he doesn't then come up to the head with shots. It's just a bit wasteful, and quite a lot of his work can be wasteful, which can definitely lead him to get tired, and I'd say that's a stylistic thing with the way that he throws. He covers up instead of going backwards. He loads up to try and explode and then can be predictable when he's doing that over and over again, and then he's just launching himself in, overreaching, lunging in, and that's when he can be caught. He can be caught at a jab from distance. I do believe he tires, like I've talked about, and his fundamentals can go a bit as well over time, and he can even look a bit off balance at times. And in general, I just think he struggles with handling speed and footwork, which in general I don't think would be a tremendous thing in which Ramirez is, really known for at all. Who I think is going to win? I think that Albert Ramirez is going to be able to win via a unanimous decision. I think that he will probably have bits of success timing Pampellone, and I would be interested to see if he does rock Pampellone any time during the fight. If it's a time shot, if it's a nice mid-range shot early. It's just, again, going to be intriguing to see how he deals with the smothering type pressure that Pampellone tries to bring, the bullish type nature, and if he tries to fight his way off or if he tries to circle his way off, because even if he's able to spin Pampellone, I think that's quite an easy thing to do when he's coming in, then he could land his own power shots, and I think the power is inevitably going to be able to cause him a good amount of problems. And again, if he can switch and go into the body nicely as well, it will just, like I say, be interesting to see who is the more tired into the later rounds. But inevitably, I do believe that Ramirez will be able to inflict the more damage and the more significant shots to be able to win via a unanimous decision. Again, who he could go on to fight next, I've kind of touched upon it. I mean, Bivol, of course, is the main thing for this WBA title eliminator. Ramirez is still ranked highly with the WBC as well, so perhaps he could go on to fight Benavidez if he's still champion, after his fight with Callum Smith. Or he could go on to fight David Morrell, which could be a good fight and a good option if he doesn't get a chance to fight for a world title next. Of course, Morrell had a close fight versus Hatayev, and again, that could be a good fight there to be made. And so, yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.